Welcome everyone to Elemental Awakening. I'm G. Today I have a very special guest, Dr. Sachin Patel. Very good friend of mine. We've had amazing experiences together. He's a chiropractor. He's in the functional medicine space, we're going to talk a lot about. He does so many amazing things, and he's also a good friend of mine. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me. Thanks for sharing your gift with the world and helping us spread the message of goodness.
Yeah. So we've been trying to get this podcast recorded for quite some time now, a few months, and every time we get together, we end up talking or doing something, and next thing you know, we run out of time to record the podcast. So today we're like, okay, we're going to do it. We sat down, hit record, and then we're like, okay, what are we going to talk about? And we've had so many amazing conversations that we're just going to flow with. We're going to follow. Sachin's someone I find very interesting, like many of the guests on the show, and he's very inspirational. He's one of my mentors, and I'll never forget one thing he said to me that actually changed my life. Was bringing me awareness as to the way I was speaking about the things in my life. And that was a big turning point. If you listen to the first episode where I talk about my journey with the float center and all the stress and things I was going through, it was one of the three turning points, which I said was watching a Donald Trump documentary, doing 5-MeO DMT, and then a conversation with Sachin, who pointed out, hey man, if you're going to keep talking about the place like that, you're going to create that. And I was like, oh, this is so hard, it takes time, blah, blah, blah. So this is the guy. And I guess just tell us a bit about your story of your path of service, wanting to be of service in the chiropractic, and how that shifted over the last 5-10 years as you've been evolving.
Sure. So I started off as a chiropractor, as you mentioned, and specifically working with athletes, specifically working with Olympic athletes and professional athletes. And then 2 years into practice, I was on the news. And that resulted from us doing great work. Specifically, we were on the news for elbow pain. And so the news report airs. It was fantastic. They did a great job. So great, in fact, that all these people started calling our practice. But unfortunately, many of those people that came in were really unwell. So we went from overnight seeing some of the healthiest people in our community to seeing some of the sickest people in our community. And through that interaction that I had with these dozens of patients that came in, I recognized that I had a major deficiency. I didn't know how to help them because they were coming in with chronic, debilitating health issues. So it was kind of like an existential crisis for me. I said, to myself, I'm like, man, I can help all these really high-performing athletes, but the people that really need me, I really don't have a solution for them. And what was gutting for me was I didn't even know where to send them because they had been to every doctor, tried every drug, had the scans, had the procedures done, and they were still struggling. So I, being the person that I am, staying in integrity, I told them I can't help them, but I didn't know where to send them. So that became my inner struggle. And right around that same time, I started learning about functional medicine. So somebody who would later become my mentor, Dr. Ron Grisanti, started sending me messages, and not me specifically, but his whole list. And I was on that list, and he was helping people with cases similar to the ones that were coming into our office. So people with chronic health issues and challenges. Turns out he was a chiropractor. I didn't know that at the time. And I'm like, wow, I wonder if I can do this. And that's when I started learning about functional medicine. And it took me a few years until I started incorporating it into practice. But originally I took it selfishly for myself because I was having digestive issues, struggling with acne and fatigue. That was the other thing. I was exercising, doing all the things right that I thought I should be doing. And I was still struggling with fatigue. So one of the first modules is digestion. Cut out gluten and cut out dairy, and instantaneously my health started to improve. My digestion improved, my energy improved, my skin started to improve.
That sounds like blasphemy coming from an Italian background. It's like dairy, gluten, it's like we're going to eat. There's no pizza, no pasta.
Well, Indian diet's the same way,
right? Yeah.
Especially when you're vegetarian. So as a vegetarian, you're just like, oh my God, what am I going to eat? So, doing that made a profound difference for me. I still remember going to my wife's house, her mom would make me a delicious meal, and then 20 minutes later, I'd be passed out on the couch, and I just wouldn't be able to keep my eyes open. So it was so embarrassing. And to try to be a picture of health and do all the right things, but still struggle with these things internally was, it was kind of emotionally draining for me. And so when I took the functional medicine training, I was like, wow, this is awesome. I feel better. I want to help other people feel this way. And so then I started incorporating it into my practice, but my boss at the time didn't really want anything to do with it because she wanted to focus on soft tissue injuries, which I totally respected. But once you learn this, you can't unlearn it. And once you start surveying your patients who might be coming in with a shoulder problem, but then you start assessing their diet and you start understanding that, hey, maybe their diet's causing the inflammation that's causing their shoulder to hurt and not progress the way we'd want it to. So I started incorporating it and started getting great results with our clients. And then the original objective was for me to take over that practice. And it just didn't work out because I wanted to practice in a totally different way. So fast forward a couple years from there, I ended up opening up the Living Proof Institute in Cincinnati, Ohio. And eventually we got that practice up and running. It became successful. And then my wife and I decided to move back to Toronto so we could be closer to our families. Opened up a clinic here in Mississauga. And the rest is kind of history. So we've continued to expand, and we've got a few practitioners that work on our team. We've got a holistic health coach and nutritionists that work on our team to help our patients feel their absolute best. And a few years ago, I kind of retired from clinical practice. That was my 40th birthday gift to myself, is to retire all my licenses and essentially focus on coaching practitioners full time. So now what I do is we've created this new model of healthcare, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure. And instead of trying to fight the existing system, let's create a new one that people actually want, one that people are willing to pay for, one that produces results. And then once we were able to do that, then other practitioners wanted to know how to do that as well. Mm-hmm. So we created a whole new healthcare model, financial model, clinical model, and essentially our model looks after both the patient and the practitioner.
And I think that's really important that you guys establish a proof of concept before trying to sell it. I see a lot of people online marketing, like, I'm going to show you how to be a coach, I'm going to show you how to be a digital marketer, I'm going to show you how to expand your business, but they've never done it themselves first. They've never been able to prove that their model works. They maybe read a book or watched a video, took all these notes, now I'm the guru.
Right.
And I love the fact that you did it first. You figured out how to make it work, and then once you did establish that, then you wanted to share it. I think that's the way it should always be done. And I've had people come to me and say, I want to open an elemental, can I franchise this? And I don't feel like we've even finalized our concept yet. The initial trigger is yeah, give me X amount of dollars, you can use the name, open it up, and it's up to you if it does well or not, right? And I'll tell you how to do it, but if I don't have it perfected yet, I don't feel comfortable, because I want to give something that I know is going to serve the investors and the owners, but also serve the community to the highest level. So I think we're on the exact same page there. But I just want to backtrack just a little bit for those of you who don't know. Can you just give us a definition of what functional medicine is and how it differs from, mainstream Western medicine, and why you think it is, the medicine of the future, and why you're so excited about, coaching and training people?
Sure. So a couple things. One is that it doesn't necessarily compete with mainstream medicine. So I just want to make that clear for everyone. It's collaborative and it's cooperative with mainstream medicine. Functional medicine is not designed to treat or address acute conditions. It's really more designed to treat chronic conditions. The current medical system is not designed to treat chronic conditions. It's designed to treat acute conditions. So there's this, glove in hand fit there.
So example of an acute versus chronic would be?
So an acute thing would be you break your leg, right? Or you have a heart attack and you need to have, open heart surgery, something like that done. Whereas functional medicine is more geared towards chronic health conditions, which are, for the most part, diet, lifestyle, environmentally induced.
That manifests as something that has a name for it after,
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. So, people go in, they get a diagnosis, but then the medications only manage the symptoms. So the key differences between functional medicine is that it's basically the exact opposite of conventional medicine, which is it makes the patient the center of the protocol versus the pill the center of the protocol. It's not diagnosis-centered, even though people come to us with a diagnosis, because no diagnosis can ever occur in isolation. There's no such thing as having one chronic disease, because the same process that's creating that chronic disease is, destroying, other organs in your body as well that we haven't identified yet. So it's the opposite in that direction as well. And then, one of the big things that we do that's different is we try to use natural remedies versus using pharmaceutical remedies. And that's not to say that there isn't a time and place for those, but we try to use nutrition as medicine, lifestyle as medicine, mindset as medicine, relationships as medicine, because we certainly know that the opposite of that can be a poison, right? So your relationship can be a poison to your health, your food can be a poison, your mindset can be poison to you. So we try to recalibrate the patient's perspective, and we always try to go for the root cause. And the root cause may not always be biochemical or biological. Sometimes the root cause can be environmental. Sometimes a root cause could be a trauma that somebody's experienced that they haven't quite resolved yet. So we try to dig through the layers of what's going on with that person. And instead of applying green medicine, which is giving them a natural remedy for their diagnosis, we really try to go below the surface to see what's going on with them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So in like, where we live in Canada, I know it's OHIP pays for a lot of stuff, and a lot of people have benefits. So most of the things in functional medicine are not covered. Do you find that challenging as growing a business to get people to pay for things that they otherwise would perceive as, this is something I can get for free if I just do what is covered under what's acceptable for more of the business? And how have you tried to change that? Because I know you had some concepts that you shared about like group classes and sort of stuff like that.
Yes, there's a variety of ways to overcome some of those objections, because the OHIP is great and I'm glad we have it, and certainly it'll be there to serve me or my family members when they need it, when it's appropriate. But think of OHIP like your car insurance, right? Your car insurance is not designed to improve the performance of your car. It's designed to be there if you get into an accident or something acute happens again, and then the insurance covers the services. So if you go to any OHIP covered practitioner, they cannot focus on optimizing your health. They have to diagnose you with something, establish a diagnosis, and then treat you specifically for that diagnosis. You can't go in there and say, hey, I want to feel better. So I like to think of functional medicine like going to a tuner shop. You can take a $150,000 Porsche and take it to a tuner and pay a little bit extra, and they can add another 100 horsepower to your engine, versus taking that same car, crashing it into a wall, and then taking it to a body shop or a mechanic to then fix it. So that's what OHIP is. That's kind of what insurance is designed for. People who come to us are really looking for performance enhancement, or they're looking for somebody to dig through the things that the OHIP covered practitioner wasn't able to. And we spend more time, the things that people want. They want to feel heard. They want someone to spend time with them. They want to have access to their practitioner. They want to be able to get in to see them at a reasonable time. They want somebody who's going to spend a little bit more time explaining things to them. So we're not actually directly competing against OHIP, because no matter how much money you were to go and pay your doctor, or how much time you're going to spend with them, none of these services would be covered.
They're not going to optimize your health. Yeah, that makes sense. But what about like people that can't afford to pay for this? Don't you think they have the right to this type of knowledge and information?
They do. So we actually have a free program. So we actually give away our best information for free. We don't give away our time for free, but we certainly give away our information for free. So we've actually created a 30-day program called 30 Ways in 30 Days, where I give away my best 30 tips. So if you were to come in and pay me, or pay my team members, we would tell you the exact same things. And these are the things that you can do on your own. These are the things that you should be doing on your own. Certainly you can pay us to tell you these things, or you can just go online and get it for free. And every day for 30 days, I'll send you a short little video that tells you exactly what to do.
And this is all on your website?
Yep, exactly.
SachinPatel.com?
So if you go to, we actually have a separate website for it. It's 30in30.org. So if you go there, it's a really quick opt-in page. We'll send you a free copy of my cookbook, and then every day for 30 days, you'll get a nice email.
Okay.
So we've taken care of the free part. So people want free healthcare, well, by all means, right? But if you want my time, then that's not free, right? Just like their time isn't free.
Of course, yeah,
it's valuable, and that's why we've put that resource together, because 80% of people who go through that resource don't end up needing our services, which is what we want. That's the actual solution to our healthcare crisis. It isn't more, hey, come and see me, because in a city of 6 million people, in a country of 35 million, that's how many people are you going to see in a day. What I believe the true solution to our healthcare crisis is actually people who know how to take care of their health, not people who wait until they get sick and then find a natural healer. So even if I was free and covered by OHIP, I still don't feel like that's the long-term solution. Nothing can help somebody unless they're willing to help themselves. So really what I believe the future is not even functional medicine. What I believe the future is people who are self-empowered, self-actualized, who know how to take care of themselves. So think of it this way, like I never want to see your kids in my office. I never want my son to be a patient in my office. So what do I have to do for his life to be that way? What do I have to feed him? What do I have to feed him mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically? What do I have to feed him to make that happen? These are the things that we want to teach other people. Now, what we believe is that should be happening at a very young age. That should be happening, the sooner the better, right? And really the only way, in one generation, you can change our healthcare narrative by teaching parents how to be better parents.
So what do you think the top 2 or 3 things a parent should be teaching their kids? Is there a short list of things that you find really crucial as a parent yourself, and someone that sees, I guess, a lot of good parenting, maybe not so good parenting?
So here's what I'll say. It's actually, I want to take that word teaching back. It's more about modeling. Mm-hmm. Because if you model health and healthy practices, you never have to teach your kids anything. Where we have to teach our kids to do something is if we ourselves are not doing it. Mm-hmm. So if we're modeling, that exercise is important, that spending time in nature is important, that eating healthy is important, that thinking healthy is important, we're speaking to them in a healthful way, then they don't know any different, right? Like my son, you know him, he gets to travel all over the world with us, and he doesn't know any different. He just thinks that everyone else gets to travel all over the world just like that. So we try to, embody that for him, and that's why our practice is called Living Proof, because we believe that we should be role models, and that's what I think patients are looking for too. They're looking for role models, not pill bottles.
Mm-hmm. You use some of the best one-liners on Facebook. If you don't follow him, he's got some
Thank you.
amazing one-liners and memes that he puts up, all original content.
So to answer your question though, aside from modeling, I think the 3 things, there's actually 3 things that are the fastest tools to heal. So if you just get one thing out of this presentation, it would be this. Look at what children do when they don't feel well. And us adults strive to do that too now. So the first thing children do is they stop eating. So naturally, intuitively, we fast because that turns on our body's own regenerative capabilities. So kids, when they're sick, they don't want to eat anything. As much as we try to shove something down their throat, they don't want to eat, right? And the body kind of shuts the digestive system off as well because it's saying, hey, let's not focus on food right now. Let's focus on healing and repair. The other thing is sleep. So sleep is very underrated. It's not very sexy, right? It's like they call sleep the cousin of death.
I talk about it all the time, and I was really like taking Gary Vee's advice for a long time, like sleep when you're dead, like wake up at 5, crush it. And then I read Matthew Walker's book. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing to myself? Why we sleep? Have you read that book? Yeah.
Yeah. So sleep is like the most underrated tool. It's free. I mean, just lay there. It doesn't cost you anything.
So is fasting.
Yeah. So is fasting. Exactly.
You save money.
You save money. And then the third thing also is free is silence. So that could be meditation. It could be a walk in the woods, but having some alone time to yourself and reflecting and just kind of observing your thoughts is super, super powerful. So
I see a book coming on, like how to save money and save your life.
Yeah.
I would add even like cold showers.
There you go.
One. That's been my sort of saving grace, where cold exposure on a daily basis, I never get sick anymore. I have this clarity and this energy to me.
Amazing.
And again, like if you're taking cold showers, you have less heating bills.
Yeah.
So it's cheaper than probably what you're doing now. It's also pretty much free.
Yeah.
And it has so many benefits to it. So all these things you're talking about,
it's all free.
Really free.
Like we actually do a webinar. It's called How to Heal from the Ground Up for free. And so we basically go through the 7 chakras and how to activate them by simply, doing the things that support those areas. So one is spending time in nature and grounding, really deeply connecting. The next one is having good, loving, healthy relationships. The next one is healthy digestion. And when we talk about healthy digestion, we really focus, of course we want to focus on what people eat, but people come to us and they've tried this diet, they've tried that diet, they tried this diet, and they're still not well. So then the question we ask them, which always kind of knocks their socks off, which is, how do you eat? Are you eating under stress? Are you eating, chewing too fast, or not even chewing your food and just inhaling it? Because that process of digestion requires activation. In fact, when we eat under stress, we actually don't activate our digestive centers. So if you're under stress, 80% of your blood flow to your digestive system basically shuts off. So how can I digest the meal if I'm eating under stress and not sending blood to the area that I want that activation to take place? The next one is following your heart and your passion, speaking your truth, getting in tune with your intuition, and then really connecting with a greater source.
So it sounds like you're incorporating some sort of spiritual type teachings into something like functional medicine, which functional medicine sounds very scientific to me, and it's a lot of testing and checking your microbiome, which we just recently did, and my results were not as perfect as I was hoping them to be, so I got some work to do. So tell me about that, like what your personal beliefs are and how that plays into overall wellness, having a spiritual practice and you know, some things that may fall into line with that, you know?
Yeah, so, you know, functional medicine, like I haven't found a better word for what we do, and we're still looking for that. So certainly if any viewers or even yourself come up with something, please let me know. But we've kind of taken functional medicine and made it 20% of our focus. The other 80% of our focus is what's happening with respect to the patient, their lifestyle, you know, their journey.
So then, I'll let you continue in a second. I was going to ask this question. So are all functional medicine practitioners the same? Or is there like a certain little base that's considered functional medicine and then flexibility to sort of incorporate it how you like?
Yeah, so functional medicine, you know, the father of functional medicine, his name's Jeffrey Bland, and him and I had a conversation over lunch a couple of months ago. And when he originally kind of coined that term, it wasn't to create a whole new form of healthcare. It was just a way of observing the body and understanding basically what we call systems biology, where all the systems and biological systems are connected to one another. And then what ended up happening is labs started coming up with ways of assessing these functions in the body, and then supplement companies came up with ways of addressing these areas nutritionally or supplementally, and then it kind of snowballed into testing and supplements. So the conventional understanding of functional medicine, the average person's understanding of functional medicine is I'm going to go there, I'm going to get some lab testing done, and I'm going to get, you know, supplements.
And that's someone's going to fix me.
Right. And that's what we call functional medicine 1.0. So that's not what we practice. Functional medicine 2.0 is maybe asking some additional questions. So a simple example I'll give you is vitamin D. So I just had a client today, her vitamin D was super, super low. And so if I give that person vitamin D, which we will because hers was really low, if all I do is give that person vitamin D and then the next time we run the labs, the vitamin D comes back up, well, I haven't really changed the behavior that created the deficiency. So we all know that vitamin D deficiency occurs when we have a sunlight deficiency. Well, in order to get sunlight, you got to be outside. And so when you're outside, you're connecting with nature, you're getting fresh air, you're breathing in the essential oils that are coming in from the trees, you're breathing in the microbiome of nature as well, so it's inoculating your body and your lungs. So there's so many things that happen when you're outside in nature, aside from getting sunlight. So to give that person vitamin D, make their lab work look normal, and then not change the behavior, to me is a form of murder, because I'm not actually helping that person live their best life. Because what happens when they get outside, there's thousands of other processes that start to improve in their body. In fact, when you're outside, your circadian rhythm improves, your sleep improves. Like all these other things start getting dialed in because we are nature. Mm-hmm. And so connecting with it is very important. And so that's functional medicine 2.0, which is changing the behavior. And then functional medicine 3.0 is creating an environment for that person to heal deeply and have a support system and a network so that they can, when they're in trouble or when they need help and support, there's somebody there for them. Either it's us as their practitioners or the community that we try to create for them. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the 3.0 version of functional medicine.
Does the spiritual philosophy fit in there anywhere at all, or is that 4.0 coming? Talking about the chakras earlier.
Yeah, I would say that's not everyone's ready for that part, right? Because it takes a certain level of evolution of somebody's journey to get there. But I think when people feel great, when they have awesome health, when they have a great community, then spirituality kind of naturally fits into that equation.
Yeah, because like I think it's super important. I think even like finding like sense of purpose and mm-hmm. like some of these other things that you mentioned about living from the heart. Like you don't have to be religious to be like spiritual, you know. And I think that's really important to discern the difference between the two, because some people automatically associate spirituality with like, oh, this functional medicine is going to say we need to be Buddhist or we need to do this, and it doesn't have to mean that. It just means more like conscious awareness of how you fit into this bigger picture, and it doesn't have to be associated with any religion.
No.
And I think that's a big one for me personally, is realizing that I didn't have to be Catholic to be spiritual. Although I grew up Catholic, and I think there's a lot of good lessons in the Bible and through Jesus' teachings, but there are also many lessons through any single religion, mm-hmm. you know, that really sort of, in one way or another, have impacted me in my life.
One thing I'll say, just this might be helpful for some people, but I view religion as going to the temple, and I view spirituality as becoming the temple. So it's more about who we become in that process, and if we can create that purity in our bodies, then it really elevates our consciousness to the next level.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is some of the things that have really helped you to expand your consciousness in the last few years? Because I know you've been on quite the journey since.
I would say that having a son, that's definitely a spiritual awakening and changes your life view and perspective on things. Certainly running a business, I view that as almost a spiritual journey. And the thing that's really, expanded my consciousness to a whole new level are plant medicines and psychedelics.
That's my next question. So
yeah, because it's really just opened me up to a whole new dimension that's always been there, but I just wasn't able to access through, these traditional senses, so to speak.
And what do you think the role of plant medicine psychedelics is going to play in our healthcare system in the future? I know there's a lot of talk about psychedelics in the pipeline to be like the next big wave. I think Forbes, New York Times, all these publications are talking about it. I don't know if those are the stock guys trying to pump up, the hype for these stocks to get money going into there. Because I know there's this big thing with the whole cannabis where it got overpumped, all this money went in. Now the market-wise, obviously the healing potential hasn't changed, but the outlook is like, not so good investment anymore. So I don't know what you think from maybe your own experiences or people in the industry that you talk to. Is there a lot of excitement towards their potential? Is there a lot of fear? What do you think
I would say that psychedelics are very misunderstood by the average person. And, a lot of people haven't actually experienced, psychedelics or the powerful effects that they can have. And I'm looking forward to that opportunity. Right now, they're used more in clinical trials in very specific instances. But, someone like myself, I don't have depression. I'm not suicidal. I'm not having, a crisis of any sort. So that type of intervention wouldn't be available to someone like me if we keep it strictly for a clinical setting. So I believe where they can make the biggest impact is if they can be used recreationally, but also under supervision, because I think that's really important.
So similar to not the acute treatment, more of the optimization or like expansion type treatment, like functional medicine would be a perfect sort of fit for that type of
if we could go to the 0 point, I think that's where psychedelics would be, right? Where it would be like if we could just start everyone there, that would probably eliminate a lot of the burden on our healthcare system, because people would treat themselves differently. They would treat other people differently. They would show up in a room or in their office or their workplace, or when they pick up their children, they would show up as a completely different human being.
Amazing. You mentioned a little bit earlier, and I think this is interesting because I sort of feel similar, that being an entrepreneur is a spiritual practice in a way. How would you sort of expand on that? Like different challenges that come up? I think the universe and your spirit is maybe not being tested, but has opportunity for learning all the time. And the decisions we make, whether out loud or whether internally, and how we treat people, how we run our businesses, only we really have to sort of answer to that as entrepreneurs.
Right.
So it's our business that make the decisions, but then there's like those ethical decisions or those decisions where no one's ever going to know. It's like, should I fire this person? Should I give this person a raise? How am I going to deal with that client that is totally at fault and is giving me shit? Like, do you respond with love, or do you tell them to go F off? How has it been for you? Because I've gone through my own similar experiences where I felt the universe was just really pressing on me to like have these realizations. Yeah. Where in the past it was just like all this victimhood and pain and like not seeing beyond what the bigger picture was. So, any of your own experience?
I've been in business for almost 10 years now. And I would say, it's evolved. Certainly it's evolved from where it was to where it is now. And, now our mantra is to serve with love. So as much as we can, our objective is to serve with as much love in every situation as we can. Even my emails now, I sign off, love Sachin. Even if I just met that person for the first time, whether it's a male or female or whether I've known them for 20 years, it's always love Sachin, because we want to imbue that and infuse that into everything that we do. And we want people to know that that's where everything we say comes from. So what I tell people, and people who know me know that I'm very blunt and to the point, and I tell them, you can either have a tough life or I can give you some tough love, but it'll always be love. So, you have the choice, right? And I feel like if we can be honest and forthright with people and just tell them what's on our heart, then they're going to be more appreciative of that. I think they're going to value your relationship more, and they're going to appreciate where that's coming from.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful. Okay, so I guess just changing gears, maybe a bit more about you personally. What are some of the things that you use to optimize your daily life? So some of your, I guess, best tips or tools that you find really give you that advantage to perform at a higher level. Is there anything in particular?
Sure. I really focus on my sleep. I know you're wearing an Oura ring. I'm wearing an Oura ring as well. And I pay attention to that. That kind of clues me into how hard I can push myself or what I should be focused on that day. And, another big thing, so sleep is one. I try to get outside every single day. I know we're in the middle of a blizzard here, but, I try to make that my focus is if I can get some outdoor time, if I can get some good rest, then those two things are going to be the biggest dominoes that I can push over in my life. And then everything else kind of falls into place. And of course, you want to eat a healthy diet. So I'm a pretty much plant-based diet. And, I try to drink a lot of water and stay hydrated. I try to keep moving. I lift weights 3 times a week. And the focus really is, how can I make the most of my day? So it's not necessarily, sometimes what happens, people, when they put together a morning routine or a daily routine, it creates a lot of anxiety for them. Whereas for me, I kind of go with the flow. So I have something in mind, but if something else comes up that's more important or needs my attention, then I deal with that immediately. I'm actually guilty, if you want to say guilty, but my inbox is almost at 0. Right? So
I saw a post the other day. I was like, wow, I'm very envious. My 4,000 emails.
So, I try to be very efficient with my time. And so instead of just staying in front of my computer, I'll check my email periodically throughout the day and make sure I stay on top of things. And I know some people will say, don't check your email first thing in the morning, but what I've realized is I love checking my email first thing in the morning for a few reasons. Well, not absolute first thing, but in the first half hour, because I get amazing emails every day. So I get lots of testimonials, I get lots of feedback, I get lots of people saying awesome things or opportunities that are opening up. And so my email is expansive, but some people's email is very negative. So avoiding that negativity doesn't get rid of it. Mm-hmm. So what I tell clients to do is really focus on how can you clean up your inbox in terms of what are the opportunities that are coming inwards. Because if you're getting all this negativity coming in, or your email creates anxiety for you versus opportunity for you, then you're always going to be running away from it. So I try to get some of those things out of the way, because then I can start my day with a clean slate. Mm-hmm. And then another thing with the inbox is I use something called SaneBox. So it filters my emails for me appropriately so that I don't even see some of the junk mail that's coming in.
Is that your Google plugin? Is that Gmail?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to look that one up.
Yeah, check it out. It's great. I'll send you a link.
And then what about like supplementation, fitness, any electronic biohacking gadgets other than the Oura ring? Anything else?
Yeah, so I have the Oura ring. I really like heart math as well, because that's a tonifier of your central nervous system, and it helps you build resilience through your breath and breathing techniques. I also use resistance bands. So instead of just using free weights, I use resistance bands, which are high intensity resistance bands, and that allows you to get a much more intense workout in way less time. So it's very time efficient. I do yoga 3 to 5 times a week, and that's another big thing for me. And I do take cold showers whenever I can, and then I also use the sauna. So I have an infrared sauna that I use probably 2 to 3 times a week.
Nice. And one obviously I talked about earlier in the podcast. I don't know if that's the first time recorded or not, but you were one of the guys in my first podcast that I shared. Really had an impact on me when you brought to my attention the way I was speaking about our floats at the time. It was our first year. We still hadn't got to the target we were looking for yet. I was this was my spiritual entrepreneur experience, where I was dealing with my attachment to money and my net worth and self-worth, like dilemma of like what's going to happen if this fails. And you brought to my attention that the way I was speaking, these things, they take time, and it's hard, and like all these like excuses and like things, but you brought to my attention that I was projecting that. Mm-hmm. I was creating that reality by continuing to say that to everyone, bringing that energy into my field. How important is it for you, like having that mindset and things like manifesting? Because I know you had a podcast that was brilliant about it. I'll share it in the link here that I really loved. I think it was called Mindset Mastery. Mm-hmm. You want to talk a little bit about that and how you use that in your daily life? Sure.
So if we look at our thoughts are the highest vibration that our bodies can create, and they basically project into the entire universe. And what happens with the thoughts that we have is we're actually setting in motion billions and trillions of moving parts. We may not realize this, but we are. And so I guard my thoughts like I would as if I was wielding a sword in front of me. And I try to be extremely conscious of the words that I use. of the thoughts that I have, but I also remind myself that just like a keyboard on my computer, if I make a mistake, I can press delete and I can start typing, or speaking or thinking new words. I learned this a few years ago, and it started when my brother put on The Secret. This was probably 12 years ago. And at the time, I wasn't ready for it. I'm like, oh, what is this stuff, right? And of course, when you're skeptical, it doesn't work for you, right? So you really, truly have to believe it. But then once you believe it and you receive it, it's amazing what you can put into motion, what you can actually manifest. I'll give you an example. We have an event coming up, and I wanted to sell it out so I could go to Portugal. And I said, if it sells out by this time, when it sells out, then I'll book my ticket. And within 2 weeks, it was sold out. So the words that we use, the thoughts that we have, the things that we hold, not just the words that we speak, but the thoughts that we hold in our heads are extremely, extremely powerful. A lot of times these things might even come up through, one of the things that's important, and this is kind of shedding light on our conversation, is that you want to speak with people who are listening to the words that you're saying. Not just agreeing with the words that you're saying, but then that they actually care enough to tell you that you're creating this. Whatever you're speaking, you're actually creating this. And so if you say something is hard, then you'll always find reasons for it to be hard. If you say it takes time, well, yeah, everything takes time. Nothing happens some things happen instantly, but nothing happens and nothing materializes instantly. So we have to start, realizing that, yeah, things do take time, but they don't have to take long. Right? Everything takes time, but it doesn't have to take as long as we might think. Because if we go in with that attitude, then we're always going to see delays. And the brain is always looking for reasons for it to be right. And so if we say something's going to take time, something's going to be hard, or I'm going to go and there's going to be tons of traffic, well, you will always find reasons the brain will always find ways to make itself right.
Yeah, I love that. I've had so many affirmations in my life once I started changing my mindset around these things. I started listening to a lot of other podcasts that talk about these kind of things. But it's so true. And if you don't have a clear vision of where you want to go or what you're working towards, it's like you said, the brain is going to find opportunities to focus on what you're focusing on, to attract the opportunities based on what you're focusing on. And if you have no focus, or you're just looking day to day, what you're doing today, in that rat race, waking up, going to sleep, looking for 2 vacations a year, you get stuck in that forever, because
a lot of people do.
That becomes your reality, and you don't think about what am I going to do? Because we're sort of brainwashed, or society, or whatever you want to call it. It's like, oh, freedom 55, work to your 65, retire, and then you'll have to live the rest of your life. I'm like, fuck, 65. I don't even know if I'm going to be here in 10 years. I'm like 65. So
one thing I want to add to that I think it's important, and it might be difficult without the video, but I'll explain it anyways, is you can go on YouTube and search up cymatics. So cymatics is how vibration changes the way everything's vibration, right? Everything has a resonant frequency to it. And what they did is they took a metal plate, they put sand on it, and then they had a speaker underneath it, and then they had a frequency generator. And as we start increasing the frequency, at specific frequencies, you would see the sand would coordinate itself in very specific shapes, reproducible shapes based on the frequency. As we increase frequency, the complexity increased. So what that tells you, the question that you would pose after seeing that is, wow, so if I increase frequency, I increase complexity. So then the question becomes, what's the most complex structure in the known universe? Because that would be vibrating at the highest frequency. Well, it's the human mind. And so our mind is the highest frequency, object in the universe, which means it's vibrating at higher frequency. And we know that frequency can coordinate and create matter and organize matter. And so our mind has that capability of literally creating our future. And so when we believe that, so the first step is believing it, right? Receiving it, believing it, and then we achieve it. And if we don't, then we're always going to find reasons. If we don't believe it, we're always going to find reasons that allow us to fulfill that belief that I don't believe this. So it's important that people realize that. So we can scientifically prove that your thoughts become things, that your words become your worlds using cymatics.
Incredible. Any book recommendations? Anything you've been reading lately that's really hit you in a way that was like, wow, this is very impactful, I want to share it?
My favorite book of all time, so if I ever get this question, it's always the same answer, is the Bhagavad Gita. And the version I like is called the Bhagavad Gita, A Walkthrough for Westerners, and it's written by Jack Hawley. So it's a very easy walkthrough of what's considered India's greatest gift to humanity. Bhagavad Gita literally translates to the Song of God. And in this poem, or in this song, essentially, it's a conversation between Krishna and Arjun.
Yeah, I read it. I read it on my honeymoon.
Okay.
I was doing spiritual seeking, and I was like, I need to find out more. Let me see what the Indians have to say, because they've been around for a long time. It made sense. And I was like, wow, it's a whole different perspective. That's when I actually went vegetarian, because the Hare Krishna philosophy about, it's the same, that person who kills the animal, that person who consumes it is still inflicting harm. And
Ahimsa.
There's so many amazing realizations I had through reading it that resonated. I was like, oh, why am I feeling like this? That means there must be truth to it. Mm-hmm. This was before I found psychedelics. That was really the first of my explorations outside of Catholicism and into the other world. That, and then was Alan Watts into Taoist and Buddhist philosophy.
Okay.
So I highly recommend it. Also, it's a very eye opener for those that want to sort of expand their horizons. Any questions that I haven't asked you that you want to share, things that you're passionate about, that you think people need to know, or any advice for people listening that may want to take things to the next level?
Yeah, I'll say this. So one of the things that is what I would call the $1 trillion healthcare secret is really getting in tune with your nervous system. So there's the autonomic nervous system, which right now is coordinating basically the trillions of cells in our body. It's coordinating our breathing, our heart rate, our blood pressure, our digestive function, immune function, cell repair, cell death. All that stuff is being silently regulated by this system. And so that system has two modes. It's either in sympathetic mode or it's in parasympathetic mode. And when we're in a sympathetic state, we're either triggered for some reason based on our values, beliefs, or experiences, and that creates an immediate response. So for example, if a lion were to walk in this room, based on our experiences, values, or beliefs, we would instantaneously go into a stress response. That stress response would immediately send a signal down our spinal cord, and all of our organs would basically shut off, because the blood that was going to those organs is now going to go to our arms and legs so we can run away. When that happens, we basically shut off detoxification, we shut off our kidneys, we shut off our liver, we shut off our digestive system, reproductive organs, immune system, all that stuff shuts off. All the things that people are going to see their doctor for, their functional medicine doctor for, their naturopath for, all of those functions shut down. Simple example, when you're in fight or flight, only 5% of your blood goes to your liver and kidneys. When you're in a state of relaxation, repair, sleep, for example, then you're sending 50% of your blood to your liver and kidneys. So if I want someone to detox better, do I give them more detox pills, shakes and potions and lotions, or do I get them to sleep more or to get into a parasympathetic state? Because in order for the organ to function, I need to send blood flow to it. So a little meme for you is where you send flow is where you send function. Just like if I want to curl something heavy, I got to send blood to my arms. If I want to run away, I got to send blood to my legs. And that blood has to come from somewhere. So the sympathetic state that most people are in, the sympathetic dominant state, basically inhibits them from having a true deep healing experience. And this is why when people go on vacation, they feel so much better, right? So for example, if somebody's feeling terrible and we're doing a workshop, let's say we'll ask people, how many days does it take you to feel great again when you're on vacation? It's like, I feel amazing in 3 days. So we know there's nothing wrong with your body. Right? If you can feel good in 3 days, there's nothing wrong with your body, because if you didn't feel good on vacation, then we know there's something wrong, deeper that's going on. What we do know is that there's something wrong with the state and tone of your nervous system, because when people are on vacation, they're in a relaxed state. So what we did is we changed the tone of their nervous system. We didn't change the chemistry of their body. And so the key to healing is getting people from being sympathetic dominant to going into a more parasympathetic state. And there's a couple ways, a couple layers to that. The first one is changing our thoughts, and at a conscious level, but at an unconscious level. So I'll give you an example. When there was a recent study done, and they realized that the feeling of fear and excitement, or the chemistry of fear and excitement, are essentially the same. So if somebody's freaking out because they're going to go give a workshop, and they're nervous about public speaking, if they were to change their language internally from I'm nervous, oh my God, to I'm excited, within 3 times of saying I'm excited, their nervous system starts calming down. If we wanted to do the same thing using breath, it takes about 7 minutes. So we can use our body to control our physiology, but our mind works so much faster.
Oh.
Another thing to realize is that our limbic brain, which is where basically part of our brain, essentially an extension of our brainstem, where all of our sensory input comes in, that part of our brain is what makes the decision if we should have a stress response or not. So all of our past experiences, values, and beliefs are basically burned into that system. Usually that forms between the age of 0 and 8. So between the age of 0 and 8, your brain is a sponge and it's absorbing everything that's going on around you, and it's categorizing whether this is fear or whether this is not fear. That part of your brain is wired for short-term decision making. So it's not able to think about, make good long-term decisions. It's really good at making good short-term decisions. Mm-hmm. This is where people sabotage themselves. This is where, if you're under stress, you'll make a bad food choice. If you're under stress, you'll say something stupid that you'll regret a little bit later. And it's because your brain is wired, or your brain is accessing the parts of it that are geared towards survival and short-term thinking. Mm-hmm. To access the part of your brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, for long-term thinking, long-term decision-making, responsiveness versus reactiveness, that requires you being in a more parasympathetic state. But for some people, it requires them reprogramming their unconscious mind. So this can be done through a few ways. One popular way is using hypnotherapy. Another popular way could be plant medicines for some people, because it just kind of re-establishes their, what they should fear and what they shouldn't fear. And a lot of times people have trauma growing up, and their brain has categorized people, places, or things, even certain smells, with that trauma. Mm. And so those things can trigger them without them even knowing. Information comes to the limbic brain first, and then it goes to the prefrontal cortex. So a lot of times people are fighting the stress response. So even at a conscious level, they know that I shouldn't be stressed by this, they're fighting their physiology, they're fighting their nervous system. So information comes to the reptilian brain, limbic brain first, and then it goes to the prefrontal cortex. The signal has already gone down the spine, the hormones have already been released at this point. So we want to reprogram that. Another thing that we want to do to get people in a more parasympathetic tone is stimulating their vagus nerve. So we can stimulate the vagus nerve using a variety of different ways. One is humming, chanting, deep breathing, gargling, gagging yourself. The other things that you can use are essential oils. So specific essential oils, I use a blend called parasympathetic, and it's a blend of clove and lime oil. And we just apply that on both sides, just on the mastoid process, and that starts properly stimulating and detoxing the vagus nerve. Another thing for the vagus nerve that I mentioned gargling, but what you can do is you can gargle the alphabet twice. So fill your mouth up with water and gargle the alphabet twice in the morning, twice in the evening, and that's going to tonify your nervous system or vagus nerve. And then tongue scraping, which Indian people do quite often, that's also stimulating to the vagus nerve. So a lot of things that we can do to create that stimulation. And then
even like chanting, singing, stuff like that also activates.
Yeah, because your vagus nerve is like right here. It's on the brain, it comes off the brainstem, and then it kind of comes down like this, and it goes to all the organs in your body. So mechanical stimulation of it, speaking, right? That's why we always feel better after we talk to somebody. Mechanically, it stimulates our vagus nerve. Chanting, humming, those type of things are very powerful. And then deep breathing creating that diaphragmatic breath also stimulates the vagus nerve.
Wonderful. So there you guys have it, guys. All those amazing tips, especially the vagus nerve stuff, very, very important. Most people have low vagal tone because of stress, right?
Yep.
And then things don't work properly in the body, right?
Well, I do want to say this for completeness. So when we stimulate the vagus nerve, we shut off that stress response, and now every organ, cell, tissue in your body goes into a state of healing and repair, because the same blood goes everywhere. So if my blood has cortisol in it, then that cortisol goes everywhere, right? It's signaling, it has an effect on every single cell and organ and tissue in my body. Whereas if I take that response and shut it off, then my cells go back into a state of healing, repair, and regeneration. So you either destroy everything at the same time or you fix everything at the same time. And that's the beauty of it, But if you're if you're not seeing this, not visualizing this, and not recognizing the power of this, then heart math is a great way to do it. Looking at your aura scores and your HRV scores is a great way to measure your tone.
Unless they're low and it stresses you out more by looking at your numbers that are not so good.
Yeah, that can happen too, right? So the one thing with the Gita is you detach from fruit, right? So you're not so focused on the outcome, but you're focused on what can I do to, as long as you're giving your best every day, that's all we can ask for, right? So we detach from the fruit, we detach from the numbers and the outcome, like even in our business. As long as I'm doing my best every day, I'm in my heart, I'm doing it with love, then what more can you really ask for?
Words to live by, yeah. And I also love what you said about relaxing your nervous system and how the blood flow increases. I'm actually writing a book. I've got the outline. I haven't actually started writing it yet, but it's on relaxing.
Okay.
It's about, I might call it relaxicity or neurolaxicity. It's the art of relaxing for a better and healthier life.
Yeah.
And for someone who has had trouble relaxing his whole life, want to do a million things, it's going to be a bunch of compilations of different stories, experiences, but also like ways to relax with breathing and stuff that I've done, like psychedelics and plant medicine. And I'd love for you to write a chapter on the health benefits of relaxing.
Let's
what do you think? You in?
I would love it.
Awesome.
I'd be honored.
Good, cool. So we're going to wrap up. Just let people know if they're curious. You already mentioned about your website, 30and30.org. Any other resources or places on social media where they can connect with you?
Yeah, so if you're a practitioner, you can follow me on Facebook at the Sachin Patel. And if you're not, you can certainly join our 30in30.org campaign and start learning about how you can take the best care of yourself. And our practice website is becomeproof.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for spending your time here today. Super valuable information. Guys, check him out. Send him some love on social media. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast, YouTube channel. He's got some great content out there as well. And until next time, have a wonderful day. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.